Right. Good day, everyone. Welcome to this exciting. I'm going to be looking at the root system of basically. I'm going to look at the morphology of flowering plants. Morphology of flowering plants. So, morphology of flowering plants. I'm going to be looking at the root system. Morphologically, the plant is divided into three parts: the stems, the roots, and the leaves. So, now I'm going to split this into three videos. So, roots in this video. Now, I'll dive into it quickly. Now, what is a root? Now, a root is actually a plant that is for anchorage of the plant, support of the plant, and to obtain water and mineral salts. That's the main function or purpose of a root system in any plant. Now, um, the roots actually develop from the seedling, part of the seedling called the radicle. So roots develop from a part of the seed we call the radicle. So a radicle is more like a young root. So when radicles are mature in seedling, they give us the root system. Now quickly, a root basically can be of two kinds. I will say the functions of the roots. A root can be of two kinds. Every root can be primary. It's what we call primary root so-called adventitious roots. Primary roots, adventitious roots. Now, what is a primary root? A primary root is a root that develops from the radicle. A primary root is a root that develops from the radicle. Okay. Now, what is an adventitious root? An root that does not develop from the radicle. So, in every seed or every seedling, this young or this part that we evolve to become the root is called the radicle, and this part that becomes the shoot is called the plumule. So the part that comes from the radicle that develop or the part that grows from the radicle is called a primary root. While any root that does not come from a radicle is called an adventitious root. So adventitious roots are roots that grow from superficial places parts of plants. So a root that grows from a superficial part of a plant is called an adventitious root. Adventitious root grows from such as stem, superficial parts such as leaves. A typical example of what I'm saying is the Bryophyllum pinnatum. Bryophyllum, Bryophyllum pinnatum. It is called the resurrection plant. This Bryophyllum pinnatum is called, I think I have one here. Okay, this is a Bryophyllum I brought to this video. In Africa, we commonly say it's used to treat cough. Uh, but that's more, it's more than that. It's more than that. Let's not talk about the uses of this. Now, we're looking at it, the system. Now, this plant, this leaf, if I place it on the soil, after some days, it begins to develop roots. Therefore, a new plant comes from the roots. So roots developed from a leaf is said to be adventitious because it does not come from a true root or does not come from the radicle. Do you get? So Bryophyllum pinnatum resurrection plant is said to what's it called to have or possess adventitious roots. In most cases, when we are trying to propagate this plant, they mainly produce adventitious roots. Another plant that produces adventitious roots is cane sugar, the sugar cane, Saccharium, Saccharium spp, or common one, Saccharium officinale or officinarium, Saccharium officinarium. So Saccharium officinarium is sugarcane. Now Saccharium officinarium also possess adventitious roots. The adventitious roots are usually from stem, while yet the adventitious usually from the roots. Now, having said that, having known adventitious roots, common plant we can say adventitious roots. Let's look at primary roots. Primary roots is usually of two types. Okay, primary roots is usually of two types. Let me keep my peripheral. So primary roots usually of two types. Primary roots can be what we say tap roots, A taproot, can be fibrous root. Now that reminds me, I'm going to drop a little bonus at the end of this class between monocots and dicots. Now, root system can be taproot and fibrous root. Now, what is a taproot? What is a fibrous root? Primary roots usually form a radicle. You know what I mean now. Primary roots from a radicle that, that grows with a single elongation into the soil. It grows with a single elongation into the soil. Primary roots that grows with a single elongation into the soil, having some few branches, but have a single reference, or have a single, or have a primary root in which it grows into the soil, have a single root in which it grows into the soil, other root hairs and some branches is said to be a taproot. So taproot should have one primary root growing into the soil, few branches, with few branches. That's a taproot. Now, what's a fibrous root? A fibrous root is a primary root in which the root divides into two or more branches, and that primary root does not elongate. So a root system, or a primary root system in which the root branches off into many branches, is said to be fibrous, while a primary root system in which the primary root grow deep into the soil, having few branches and air, is said to be a taproot system. So grows directly into the soil like a tap system, while fibrous roots white fibrous root is a type of root in which the root gets to a point of growth. As it begins to grow, it branches off into many branches. Such roots to be fibrous. Now, fibrous root is seen mainly in um, monocot plants, while taproot system is seen in dicot plants. You see, the check most dicot plants. You can use the pear. Pears normally grow easily. We use your Magnifera indica, your mango. Now you see, a mango. If it's growing, it has a root system, one root system that goes deep into the soil. That primary root grows deep into the soil branches. So that's the taproot system. But how does the Z may grow? The Z may, that's the corn or the maize. The maize plant, how do they grow? The maize plant grow by when it begins to have a primary root system. So that primary root system branches up at a particular point into various roots. That becomes a fibrous root system. So fibrous root is seen in monocot, taproot is seen in many dicots. So that's that for that. Now for the root system, I have to say this for roots. Now for a root, as a root is growing, okay, as let's say we have a root system like this, root system growing, a root system. Now, the tip of the root, or the cap of the root cap, covers a set of cells we call meristematic cells. So meristematic cells, or the meristem, is the point in the root tip where cell division occur. So the point in the root tip, or the group of cells in the root tip that can divide repeatedly, are said to be meristematic cells, and by the root cap. You get, so the meristematic cells are found in the root tip, covered by the root cap. So that's that for root system. That's that for. And this, I said, is the two kinds of fruits that we have. Every other root is of these two. The- Every other root is of these two. So in general, now we cannot say there are 8 to 7 types, which will also be of these two. We should either be primary root from radical, or the adventitious root from the superficial part. And there are about 7 types of fruit. So just follow me as I illustrate them, basically, from the ones you know to the ones you don't know. So I'll start with buttress roots. I'll start with a buttress root. Now, what is a buttress root? A buttress root is a root that develops from tree trunk. So usually it's found in plants that undergo secondary growth, dicot. I said I'll drop bonuses at the end of this class. So in dicot plants undergo secondary growth, what they call thickening. So form thick back at the end of when they get to maturity. So the dicot plants undergo secondary growth. The- When they tend to form trunk as they grow. Now, a root that arises from a trunk is said to be first root. Now, for instance, we have a Indian almond, or we say Magnifera indica, the mango. Okay, now you have a mango stem. So this could be the ending part of the stem. So this stem will therefore go into the soil like this to form the root system. Now, mind you, this there will be a taproot system. So when the way this root will be like, there will be one system, one root system going down into the soil. So I think this is soil now. One taproot system will go down into the soil. Then it will form branches, but there's that particular taproot. But trees, or rather roots, form from what's it called? From trunk. Roots form from trunk. So a buttress root is a root formed from a trunk. Are we there? Okay. And buttress roots usually form just to add to it, usually form a conical bone, which is usually divided in round base, which is more often divided. Okay. As a buttress root, they are found in dicot plants, mango, Indian almond, the pear tree, and so on and so forth. They are so when you just see a and this roots they usually start from above the soil. So from the stem usually ends somewhere. Let's say if you have seen a mango tree, the stem usually ends far above the soil. And roots start far above. So some refer them to as area roots. That means they are roots that begins above the soil, or rather sub area roots. They go from above the soil into the soil. So these thick roots they start from here and start the branching off at from you have a single taproot system. But basically to know them, roots that usually arise from tree trunk, thick trunk are usually buttress roots. The type of roots I'll look at today is the fast fascicled roots. The fascicled roots. The fascicled root is a special type of root that is tuberous. Now there are roots that produce tuber. So when any type of root that is tuberous or that can produce tuber is said to be a fascicled root or a fascicled root. A fascicled root. A fascicled root is a type of root that produces tubers at the end of the day. Okay, example is the Maniox planter or the Maniox species with tendencies and so on. Now, Maniox esculenta. So, Maniox esculenta, that is cassava, the species of cassava. So, how does it work? How does it work? So, we have a stem basically coming, a stem with many nodes. I'm going to explain all this in this our botany class. So, I'm going to explain. So, this is very useful to those of us offering botany A level, O level, to you. So you have a stem having different nodes, and okay, and when it arises to give the roots, the root branches off. At the tip of each of the branch is a tuber. At the tip of each of the branch is a tuber with some hairs. So such roots are said to be fascicled roots. Fascicled roots. So that's fascicled root. That's in cassava, any tuberous, what's it called? Tuberous, tu- plants or tuberous roots. You get? I have that also in Pommier species. Example in Pommier batata. So Pommier batata is sugarcane. Pommier, Pommier batata is. How am I saying sugar cane? I say sweet potato, pardon. The pommier batata is sweet potatoes. So potatoes is also a root tuber. Okay, such roots are berries that have swollen tip or swollen part. And it's also one we should also notice something about this root, that the root is not a taproot system, it's a fibrous system. Do you get? That's what we said. This root system is really of two kinds. So fibrous. You have main roots. This is the primary root. It branches off. Primary root branches off. That's the fibrous root system. So having known that, the next type of root I should look at is a water root or aquatic root. So it's called water roots, or they call it aquatic roots. Now I can find that in water lettuce. Okay, water lettuce. Water lettuce. That's the Pistas stratotis. Pistas stratotis. Let me write the botanical name. Pistas stratiotis. So now the Pista stratiotis, the water lettuce. Now, what type of root is the water lettuce? Okay, probably might have any diagram on the board. Okay, I think I'll show you. Now, this is a type of root that do not require any solid for anchorage. Okay, it does not require soil for anchorage. Instead, it grows on water and it gets water and minerals from the water. So it does not require any substrate for anchorage. Such root is water root or an aquatic root. It is different from matophor or breathing root. It's different from the matophor. Those roots are also the matophor, or what we call breathing root, is also a root adapted to stay on water, but it is different. Now, this is different from the matophor or water root. So the matophor root has special features in which the water root or the aquatic root does not have. The matophor root allows gaseous exchange. You can exchange water with, you can exchange gases with the water. The root can exchange gases with the water. So that's the difference. That's the major one, the major difference between water root and aquatic root. So let me show you let me show you so the four type of root I just said now is roots, pneumatophore. Pneumatophore roots. Okay, pneumatophore roots. Pneumatophore roots, remember, they are also called breathing roots. We call them breathing roots. So these roots allow the the plant to exchange water or exchange gases in water. So, yes. So let me show you a typical pneumatophore root. Typical pneumatophore root, let's say I have a primary root. Now, therefore, I have branches. Okay, I have branches. And, this allows for anchorage of plants in water. That's for anchorage of the plants in water. So you see, until it gets to hold the substrate, this set of roots holds a particular substrate. They don't stop branching off. So this type of root is referred to as a 1, 2, 4 root. So this type of root is referred to as a, all right. So this is a pneumatophore root. Now it allows the plant to exchange gases in water. It allows the plant to exchange gases. It's commonly seen in hydrophytes. So this pneumatophore root is commonly seen in hydrophytes. So roots or plants that grow in waterlogged conditions. So plants that grow in waterlogged conditions usually have this type of roots. Very popular plants that have this type of roots is red mangrove, red mangrove and the white mangrove. Red mangrove. Now, the red mangrove is called Rhizophora racemosa. Rhizophora, Rhizophora racemosa. Don't be. I see. People confuse white mangrove to black mangrove. White mangrove is languicularia or languicularia. Let me spell laguncularia. Laguncularia racemosa. Laguncularia racemosa is white mangrove, not a vicina nitida. Vicina nitida is a vicinal nitida is black mangrove. So this is white mangrove. Now, white mangrove and red mangrove usually have pneumatophore root, but white mangrove can also possess a special type of root called silt root. I'll explain. slit root. So it's actually spelled Stilt. Stilt root. Yes, stilt root. They have this. It's called standing root. It enables them stand on water. But anchorage. I will explain. I will explain. It's not a primary root. It's an adventitious root. Unlike pneumatophore root. Pneumatophore root is the primary root. So primary roots on most mangrove plants are usually pneumatophore roots. Pneumatophore roots or helps in pneumatophore roots um allow them stay in waterlogged environment. So this root can stay in water, this root and can anchor the plant. There are usually very many, and they can rise many ways to give stems. Yes. So they can these roots enable them exchange gases in water. It provides anchorage for the stem. That means it allows the stem to stay on top of water very well. It provides anchorage for the stems and the leaves, and it allows for gaseous exchange. It's called pneumatophore roots. Why this white mangrove when they stay on land, they possess this type of root called steel roots. Those roots when they don't stay, when they stay on, especially white mangrove found um, wet soils, this time not on water, they usually possess this steel roots. So, watching this video, I advise you also read your books, check your research. I've done a lot before saying a lot here. So that's for pneumatophore. That's for pneumatophore roots. So it's different from a it's different from a water. It's different from a water root. Structure of a water root. I wish I can draw. Let me draw a water root here. So you have a plant, basically a plant. Now, stems are usually now the one thing I observe by them is that they usually have these people have horizontal stem on the water. So this water lettuce also they have horizontal stem on the water. Keep them will not possess roots that is on the water. So what's the function of this root? The function of this root is not support. The function of this root is just the function of the root. To this is water now. This is waterlogged environment. So clear. My markers to be clear. So we have so let's say I have an horizontal stem. Oh, let's take this. So I have an horizontal stem. We have leaves. The here becomes my roots. Okay. I can leave. So what's the function of this root? This is all water. So all here we have water. So what's the function of this root? The function of this root is to collect minerals and water from the so normally the root gets the root system, the function of the root, maybe I've not said it in this video, the function of the root is to actually aside anchorage, it actually take mineral salt and water from plants. So collect mineral salt and water usually from the soil or from the substrate it is growing on. So now it is growing on water, it take mineral salt and water to have photosynthesis and produce food. So that is the function. But for pneumatophore root, they do beyond collecting minerals. They do beyond collecting minerals. Pneumatophore root obtain what's it called? They obtain um, oxygen also for the plant. They obtain oxygen also for the plant. The gases also for the plant. That's the main difference between water roots. And so that will bring me to these two type of root I call fusiform and napiform roots. Fusiform roots having these two type of roots. We call them fusiform and napiform. So form and napiform. Tell me what they are here. So number I think I've done four, I think. I've done buttress roots, I've done five seed roots, two four roots, water roots. The fifth fusiform. Now you see why I classify them together. Just a small difference. Fusiform and napiform root. Now, what is a fusiform? What is a napiform root? Now, a fusiform root is actually also a tuberous root. It's a tuberous root, but these roots usually uh, they are colored, usually pigmented. These roots are usually pigmented. They have root hairs. These flowers are usually one, unlike the fascicled root. Fascicled roots are primary root giving up many tubers. Primary root giving up many tubers. That's fascicled. Now, that's fascicled. That's for cassava. Now, for fusiform root is usually a single taproot system. A single taproot system, but this taproot system is swollen. Now, as it swells, it's swollen at the middle and gradually tapers off or tapers. Use the word taper biologically. It gradually tapers, that means it gradually becomes slimmer. That's a fusiform root. Now, unlike the fascicled root, it is not a taproot system. So, it is more like a taproot, one single root, but this root storage of food, so it's tuberous. So tuberous roots are also fusiform and napiform roots. They act as storage of food. But the difference is that these ones, fasciclate roots, have many tubers. They have many tubers. They produce many tubers. Yeah, they produce many tubers. And from a primary root, the branches of to produce many tubers. So we see they are more fibrous. These ones are taproot system, just a single taproot with some root hairs. They normally have some root hairs at the side. If I've seen Darcos carota, Darcos carota, which is carrot. Darcos carota, Darcos carota, which is the carrot. Okay? Darcos carota is carrot. This is it on the board. Now this guy, it's swollen as I said at the middle and gradually tapers off. That's fusiform. While napiform roots, I can see this in sugar beet. I can see that in sugar beet. I can see that in some other plants. Okay, one that came to my mind now, just escaped me, but maybe I'll remember before I finish. Now, this napiform root is swollen, like this guy. The middle is also swollen, but it's much more swollen than the fusiform. As it's swollen, then immediately tapers off. So you have a root that is swollen or a root that is swollen, and it's, remember, it stores food, so it's tuberous. So it's a tuberous root. It is still just the difference between this one and this one is that this one is a single taproot system, but the taproot is swollen at the middle and tapers off immediately. This one gradually tapers off. This one tapers off immediately. Put in sugar beet to get in sugar beet, which is actually beta vulgaris. Beta vulgaris, that's the sugar beet. This is fusiform, fusiform. This is napiform, napiform, beta vulgaris, sugar beet, beta vulgaris. Okay, that's fusiform, that's napiform. So you can see them how eloquent they look. All right. The next type of root I'll look at is um, reproductive roots. So the sixth root I'll look at is the reproductive roots. So the sixth I'll look at is the reproductive roots. The reproductive roots. Reproductive roots. So after this video, I believe anything about roots, morphology of roots, you should be done with it. You don't have to read it up. So the reproductive roots. Now the reproductive root is actually a root. The reproductive root is actually a root that is very simple. Now, sometimes they are buttress in nature, but roots that can actually generate a new plant. So, when a root can generate a new plant from taproot system, so usually we have a taproot system and branches can develop a new plant. And such root is said to be a reproductive root. For example, if you see in guava, okay, you see as the Cedium, so as Cedium guajava taproot system. System. And, roots are the branches are reproductive, so they can generate a new plant. So when a root can generate a new plant, it's said to be a reproductive. It's said to be a reproductive root. It's a, so that's that for that. The next root system I have to look at is the top root system. The top root system. The first root system I have to look at is the prop root system. Okay. Uh, the prop root system. I think that's the seventh root I'll be looking at now. The prop root, you can see one here. If you see what comes to your mind, I think is the Z maize, the maize. To say those of us in Africa, if you have seen a Z maize, the maize, the corn plant. That was a prop root. What's the prop root? First, it should be noted that prop roots are adventitious roots. They don't come from true roots, so they are adventitious roots. So prop roots are adventitious roots. Since a prop root is adventitious, since a prop root is adventitious, now what is a prop root? A prop root is an adventitious root that um, usually grows from the stem. It usually grows from the stem or the leaves. They either grow from the lower nodes of the stem, you see the lower part of the maize plant. If you have seen it before, we have some smaller roots aside the fibrous root system. We are going to have in this maize. We have the fibrous root system. You also have, you see this set of roots growing out at the lower nodes. Or in fig trees, the ficus species, this root is seen at the trunks of the plant. You start seeing the trunks of a plant or the trunks of a tree start producing roots, either for anchorage or for support. Yes, either for anchorage or for support. Now, the prop root, you should know that all prop roots usually grow downwards. So you should, I can have a fig tree, a fig tree, and having many roots to either anchor the plant or to tap minerals to either anchor the plant. That's the I would advise you to look at a plant called the Ficus elastica. You can use your phone and browse. The Ficus elastica is the Indian rubber tree. You see what I mean. You see what I mean by proper system. That's an advanced proper system. I can see proper system in bambusa bamboos, what we call bamboo in Africa. Bambusa bamboos. Okay, bamboo here in Africa. The proper system, while advanced purpose. What is the function of the cross? Why? Because obviously there's a primary root. The primary root. This, like I said, this one is a primary root. This pardon me, this stem normally have a primary fibrous root system. This maize. But what's the function of this prop root that is developing? The prop root usually have a function. Do you get this prop root? So they usually have functions. This prop root have functions. Now, functions of this prop root to classify these prop roots. Yes, so say prop root can be classified. People will say first for support, for this prop root for support. Now, which type of plants which type of organism, which type of roots, or type of plant have prop root for support? We have what they call the riverside screw pine. The riverside screw pine. So it's an example of a what's it called? A example of a plant that uses prop root for support only to support its growth. The prop root for support only. The riverside screw plant. It's called Pandanus. Pandanus odoritissimus. Pandanus odoritissimus. Okay, that is the riverside screw pine. Riverside screw pine. It usually uses so we can just say Pandanus species. Pandanus species, but there are very many species of it. Pandanus species. So when you see Pandanus in your exam, that's a riverside screw pine. It's a pine, but a riverside screw pine. There's a reason for this name. Let's not go there today. I was trying to check before this video, so let's not go there today. So the Pandanus species, they use their prop roots to support the plant because the stems are usually very weak. They grow in riverside, and the stems are very weak. So to support the plant, to enable good support, so to enable good support mechanism. Support is framework. If you have read supporting tissues in animals or plants, you see support gives plant framework, gives an animal framework. This is why I can stand because I have a skeleton. support the spray more. So it supports the plant so that the plant will not be carried away by the winds of the rivers or the riverine environment and so on and so forth. So the Janus uses that for support. Now again, the prop root is used in other plants for both support, for support and photosynthesis. For support and photosynthesis, the prop root is used in support and photosynthesis. Okay, it's used for both support and photosynthesis in plants such as Z-maize. Plants such as Z-maize, okay, Z-maize, um, bambusa, bambusa bamboos, bamboos. So it's used in support for this time, not just support, both support and photosynthesis. So the one of the main function of this root in these plants is corn, this maize is for both support and photosynthesis. So if you have seen a bamboo before, this particular crop root is very abundant in the bamboo stem. You get very abundant in the bamboo stem. It can be green and can help to carry out photosynthesis. Now also, this crop root acts as area root also. Crop root can act as area root. It can act as area root. What's an area root? Okay, an area root is a root that grows above the ground. The root that grows above the ground. The area roots, so as they are above the ground, they can collect minerals for the plants above the ground. Now we explain. Area roots can function for support and can function for collecting minerals for the now, for instance, this area root, I like to talk about them in two ways. Area roots, I would like to talk about it in two ways. There are area roots that support the branches or support the plant. So, for instance, a tree is growing. This is seen in the banyan tree. If you have seen the banyan tree, species. One is Ficus. I think Ficus ban bangladesis. Ficus bangladesis. That's a common banyan tree. Now, in this banyan tree, talk about the Ficus elastica, the Indian rubber tree. Okay, in this banyan tree, remember we're looking at the prop root as an area root. Prop root as an area root. So in this banyan tree, it's called a banyan tree. A banyan tree. A banyan. In this banyan tree, now it has a lot of leaves. It has a lot of leaves. A very big tree. Now, but at the top of the plant, you see some roots moving downwards. So at the top of the plant, try and check a banyan tree. Try and check ficus trees. You see what I'm talking about. You see roots from the top of the stem, very top of the stem, not even at the lower. No problem. Prop usually are from lower nodes, but this time more like top middle of the stem. You see root growing downwards, just for anchorage, just for anchorage and to support the branches. For anchorage and support the branches of the stem. So that kind of area root is found in banyan tree. So prop root can act as area root. That's a root way above the ground, not just sub area, not on the ground now, way above the ground. This area root can act as support and anchorage for branches of the trees. Now, this area root, some also like the Indian rubber tree, many myths around the tree says the area roots on this Indian rubber tree, just like the ficus species, they're all fig trees. It's also a ficus species, ficus elastica. That's the Indian rubber tree. Indian rubber tree. They have this area of prop roots. Indian rubber tree. Now, in the Indian rubber tree, there's a myth that says this crop root usually arises from the droppings of their seeds, droppings of seeds by birds. So this same tree, these birds pick their seeds and drop it on the plant. When they drop it on the plant, the roots tend to arise from the seed when the seed falls on the plant. So for instance, I have a tree, I am a tree now, for instance, I am a tree, and I start developing, but I have many branches. So as I have many branches, I start to develop roots. Why does it develop roots? Because birds pick my seed, and when they were trying to feed, they pick my seed and drop the seeds on my branches. So branches started developing roots from the seeds due to the falling of the seed. So that kind of roots, or that type of area roots, is also that kind of area prop roots. Remember, I was talking about the prop root system. Now, prop roots are for support, basically for support of resistances, and third one are area roots. Area roots, these area roots are help in anchorage and support also. There are special types of prop roots. Now, the first area root found in banyan tree, or the first area prop root found in banyan tree, helps to support or anchor the branches. For the branches. Now, for the Indian rubber tree, the second type of area roots, the area roots are formed due to dropping of their seeds by birds on the branches. The type of area root formed like that is seen in the Indian rubber trees. Also help in anchorage, and also help to support the branches. That's why I put them together. They separated in the, they said they separated these two things. They say area root for support, area root formed by seed droppings of birds. The, the prop root, types of prop roots now. Area roots for anchorage banyan tree, area roots formed by droppings of seeds by birds and other animals. Their rubber tree. But the basic thing is that this area root for this area prop root for this area prop root for this India rubber tree, this this area prop root for this India rubber tree and this banyan tree, this area prop root are both used. They both support the branches. If you look at them, they also act as support for branches. Do you get? So I said I was going to drop some bonuses at the end of this video. I'll take on the bonus. Now, if you have a pen, you can write. Now, what are the difference between monocot and dicot? I'll give you a lot. I'll give you like 5 differences now. But, okay, the first one. Now, monocots, first of all, their germination. Monocot undergoes hypogee germination. You should know this. Hypogee germination is a germination in which the seed leaf is left in the soil. The epicot is left in the soil. The um, pardon me, as the epicot is carried above the soil. What am I saying? Hypogee germination is a type of germination in which the epicot is left in the soil, the seedlings is left in the soil. The epicot elongates more than the hypocot. The epicot elongates, so the epicot will grow out. It elongates more than the hypocot. That's hypogee germination. So it's in monocot plant. So dicot plant have what we call epigee germination. The germination, the hypocot, in epigee germination, the hypocot elongates more than the epicot. So the hypocot takes the seedling. But you should take note of this. Not all dicots undergo epigee germination. The word epigee. Not all dicots undergo epigee germination. That should be taken note of. Example of a dicot that does not undergo epigee germination is the Arachis hypogaea. Arachis hypogaea. Arachis hypogaea is the groundnut or peanut. That's the groundnut or the peanut. It does not undergo epigee germination. It's a dicot that undergoes hypogee germination. Now that should be noted. There are some other examples, but because of time, now another bonus. I hope you have stayed to the end of this video. Another difference between monocot and dicot plants is that monocot plants, their floral part occurs in pairs or multiples of 3. The floral part occurs in multiples of 3, usually 3, 6, 9. While for dicot plants, the floral part occurs in pairs of 4 and 5. Pairs of 4 and 5. That's for dicot plant. Dicot, I've said it earlier, dicot have taproot system, monocot has a fibrous root system. Now, you should know even between fibrous roots and fasciculate roots. Between fibrous roots and reproductive roots, can clear the difference. Ones are kinds of roots, type of root, and tap roots and fibrous roots are types of primary roots. Why adventitious? If you have seen it, if you have hearing this video, I know you understand very well because it's very brought down by God's grace. So that's for another difference between monocot and dicot plants. Another difference between monocot and dicot plants is that monocot plants do not undergo secondary growth, not because they just lack cambium. to correct some things we say. Not because they lack cambium. Monocot plants have cambium. They lack vascular cambium. That should be noted. They have monocot have cambium, but they lack vascular cambium. And which cannot let their cells properly differentiate. So hence they cannot undergo, that's for monocot, hence they cannot undergo secondary growth. They cannot undergo thickening to get, and the thickening is due to xylem. Now for dicot plants have vascular cambium, so they can undergo secondary growth. The secondary growth, I know you get. Another difference between monocot and dicot plant, another difference between monocot and dicot plant is the monocot have parallel leaf venations, while dicot have, you see when you take a leaf of a which is monocot and which is dicot. I'll say one last difference between monocot. One last difference between monocot and dicot. I don't talk about your seed leaf. Anytime you can break a seed into two equal half, it's a dicot. Anytime you cannot break a seed into two equal half, it's monocot. I don't want to see that. Talk about growth. So those are the major differences between them. Those are the major differences between them. I meant the analogous. Next video till by what I would like you to do after watching this video to this extent. I know you loved it, so more videos are coming on the other biological aspects.